Welcome to part 1 of my 2-part interview with Elle from Let's Talk About X. Let's Talk About X supports workplaces, schools, and parents with training and resources to help them develop a culture of consent and LGBT plus inclusion. In the first part, we talked about how the organization started, the topic of consent, and how businesses need to practice communication and boundaries. Welcome to the Get Chatty About Your Local Businesses series, and it is a podcast about our LGBT plus friends and allies, small businesses, and their story behind them. Today we have Elle with me. How are you today?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. It's quite good. We're recording in winter, but you appear to be wearing a short sleeve shirt.
Yes, I've hacked the system a little bit. I am dialing in from Thailand today. You caught me.
Well, no problem with that. But speaking of that, your shirt is Let's Talk About X.
Yes.
Yes. Well, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And let's talk about X.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like you said, my name is Elle. Let's Talk About X is my little social enterprise that I run, just me and my partner. And essentially, in terms of who I am, my background was high school teaching. So I was a high school teacher for quite a while. A look of surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't aware. So that's kind of the background that I came from. And in the school that I was at, a lot of young people were essentially calling out for two things. One was better consent education. And the other was because I was quite visibly queer as a teacher, a lot of LGBTIQ plus young people would come and talk to me about things that they were noticing in the school. And part of that was also just they wanted teachers to have a better understanding of different identities and language to use to make them comfortable in their classes. So that is kind of the origin story that's very kind of different to what we are today. But essentially, my partner and I started Let's Talk About X initially to provide consent education in schools and to train teachers in LGBTIQ plus inclusion. There's been a big evolution since then. And essentially part of it has been that, I mean, teaching in Victoria is in crisis at the moment and schools are struggling with funding. So in order to make what we do accessible to schools or more accessible to schools, we now do what we do, but for organisations and corporate. So what Let's Talk About X does is sexual harassment prevention training and LGBTIQ plus inclusion, as well as keynote speeches and things. And that is for corporate now. And then every hour of paid training, we spend an hour making free resources for schools so that we can still provide.
I didn't know about that.
Yep, surprise, teacher. Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people don't realize, and it's one of the reasons that, like, I don't know, I mean, running a business, as you and your audience all know, you wear so many hats and there are so many different things that you do, but having the teaching background behind me has really helped just in terms of developing our training programs in a way that helps people actually digest the information and that has time for application, so time for people to actually practice and script what they want to do and say, because otherwise, I mean, I know myself what it's like to be told a lot of information and then you just kind of don't process it. Yes, exactly. So it's helpful having that teaching background in that sense. Just kind of makes everything what we do really hands-on and helps people remember and put things into action.
It's sometimes that even from like a marketing point of view or just a team management point of view, it's very important to guide people to a way that they absorb the information and understand it, because otherwise that, like, for example, if there's a platform that I think is really good, but if I'm forcing everyone else to use it, it's not going to help. And as a matter of fact, it'll just go just like one ear in, the other ear out, and nah,
Exactly, yeah. And everyone learns in different ways too. So yeah, what works for one person isn't going to work for another. So it's good to kind of have a bit of, I mean, for example, like when we're delivering a workshop, we'll have different ways of engaging people. Like some people might like to have something written on the board so that they can read it and process it that way, but others might not like that. And for those people, will also tell a story, or later down the track play a video, or facilitate discussions. Because yeah, you're right. Just kind of what sometimes things just wash over you.
A lot of things. Well, I mean, okay. In that case, the next question can be a little bit funny because you have such a great ecosystem of offering. But what do you mind sharing that? What is the typical day is like for you, or well, if there's a typical day at all?
Oh, yeah, if there is a typical day, you're right. Because at this stage, I think, do you know what? I think I've gotten to a point where I have more of a typical day than I had maybe last year or the year before that. Because coming from a teaching background, a lot of starting Let's Talk About X was just trial and error. Like my partner was also a teacher, so neither of us had a business background. That's something we've had to learn over the last 3 years. So I think I've finally kind of got to a point where things are working a little more smoothly, and I do have a bit of a more typical day. So I guess at the moment, a typical day looks like, get up, have a cup of coffee, walk the dog. And then I'll often have 2 or 3 meetings with just people who have other social enterprises. One of the big things I'm really trying to do at the moment is connect more with other small business owners and social enterprise owners and founders, because, I mean, partly my work is almost entirely online, so it can be quite isolating, and it's nice to have connections. And then also partly just because what I say about not having known anything about business beforehand, I'm finding it really valuable to kind of chat with other people and share what we've learned, share mistakes we've made, share successes and wins that we've learnt from. And it's been really, really valuable. So that's how my days kind of start. And then there'll either be a little bit of like course creation if we're designing a course, because everything we do in workplaces is tailored to the specific context of the workplace. So even if we have like a pre-existing program, we'll still be working to kind of make that ideal for the workplace, because every context is so different. And especially when we're talking about things like sexual harassment prevention, LGBTIQ plus inclusion, there's no point me coming in here and reading people a bunch of legal definitions if they work for somewhere that writes in policy. Or, like, you've got to know your context. You've got to also know, like, for example, we did a job recently for an organization that was previously just hired women, and now they were looking to hire women and gender diverse people. So tailoring something to their context to help cover what they want. And then, I don't know, how do days finish off? Usually with a nice meal and yeah, exactly.
It's something you mentioned is very important because it's a constantly evolving space. Because, like, for example, sexual harassment, consent, even the diversity space, the bigger diversity space, that it's changing a lot, especially in the last few years. So, what do you think about, like, workspaces need? Like, what do you think would be the biggest need now?
I think at the moment, so we're kind of at a point here where politically a lot has been happening within Australia, and especially within Victoria, where there are starting to be regulations in place, and there's starting to be funding put out there to actually address the need that has been there for a very long time, which is, and I say the need, they're kind of 2 needs under one umbrella. So the Victorian government at the moment has a lot of movements to break down family violence or gender-based violence. And within that are our kind of 2 areas. So sexual harassment prevention, LGBTIQ plus inclusion. So that's kind of my roundabout way of coming to the answer of your question. Is the first thing that I think is good in terms of the context right now is that policy is there, funding is starting to be there, organizations, workplaces, corporate, they're talking about this. The Respect at Work framework has recently been updated so that people who own a business or run a business now have what we call a positive duty. So they have to prevent things like harassment or sexual discrimination in the workplace, which brings me to the need at the moment, which I would boil down to teaching communication skills. And that's like communication skills that a lot of us weren't taught in schools and potentially weren't taught in our families, because everyone has different ways of communicating. But I think when it comes to things like sexual harassment in the workplace or discrimination, LGBTIQA plus discrimination or homophobia, transphobia, a lot of it today, especially in a Melbourne landscape, is not necessarily the deliberate, aggressive form anymore. A lot of it is things that people might think are a joke or things that we've internalized even from watching romantic comedies. I mean, I look back on some of the rom-coms that I grew up on and
problematic,
things,
quite a few of them.
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
things that we looked at and thought were really cute and lovely. Like I'm thinking now about it. There's a scene in The Notebook where Noah is hanging off the Ferris wheel, threatening to let go if he doesn't get a date with, I can't remember the other person's name, but
that's a red flag.
yes,
That's a
and
red
now we
flag.
know this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
At the
But
time, it was
yeah,
romantic.
it was so cute. It was really lovely. And I think this is kind of part of the context that we're in, is that they're just, a lot of it is messages we've internalized and we don't quite realize. So I think that's a big need at the moment, is teaching the awareness of that and the awareness of the messages we may have internalized, and then the communication skills and the language to send healthier messages and nice messages to make those around us feel comfortable. Because I do think a lot of the time it's not even deliberate, a lot of these incidents that happen in workplaces.
I mean, I don't watch that series, but the Sex and the City sequel, that it's only the second series. I know. It's just a bunch of privileged women that like.
I haven't seen it in so long. Sorry if
Oh
you
yeah.
can hear my dog barking.
Oh,
Shush.
good. Bring them in. Bring them in. We need a dog cameo.
I'll see if I can get her for later.
Okay. Well, yeah. So Carrie was um, complaining about a man asking if he can kiss her before kissing her.
Huh.
And then there's another guy that just sticks tongue down her throat, and she thought that's romantic. And I was like, I mean,
Interesting. Yeah.
look,
So is this is the movies that have come out more recently, or
no,
the show ages
it
ago?
was the new show. It was the new show called And Just Like That. And
Huh.
it started in 2023. And I believe it's the
Right.
second series or the end of the first series that
Yeah.
for some reason people find Carrie attractive. And then there's two men pursuing her. And then one asks for consent before kissing her. Then she found it unattractive. And I was like,
Yeah. Oh,
ooh.
that's the thing. These are the messages that we can internalize when
Oh
really,
yes. And
yeah, what's,
sometimes it's things about you don't know what you don't know. And you're creating the space for that. And which
exactly.
is really fantastic. And I personally I want to add a comment on that is because for smaller operations, no matter it's like a small business or sole trader or a side hustle or something like that, understanding all these important topics, it actually help increasing the appeal of your business to because well, I mean, we're all aware that there's a growing Gen Z consumers in or business
Yes.
people running business and such as and their consumer and their basis are people that who think about firstly the business case and the secondly equally the moral case
Yeah.
that sense of generational change maybe it's actually quite useful for small businesses to get to know get to
Yeah.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially because all the skills we teach, they're not things that are going to come off as aggressive or preachy or, even necessarily obvious. Like, it's just small changes to the way we use language or the questions that we might ask to check someone's comfort level that will either just go unnoticed and become part of the day-to-day, or they will really mean something to a few people in the room.
Yes.
It's not about trying to make a big fuss and create division. It's actually just about bringing people together.
It's not about vilifying or demonizing someone. It's about start to talk about it. Well, which is exactly what your business name is. Let's talk about it.
Exactly.
Well, there's something that I noticed on your website is quite amazing. You have a free resource hub in there.
We do.
So can you tell us a little bit more about it and what people can expect to find there?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, this kind of comes back to the social enterprise model that we have. So these are the resources that when we get an hour of paid training, we spend an hour to develop these for free. And it's a range of things. So there's an online course on there going over the affirmative consent laws that changed relatively recently now. It's been 2 or 3 years since the Victorian laws for consent change. So there's a free self-paced online course. And then we have other things like for teachers, there are lesson plans or activities that can be done in class to teach consent skills for kids. We have like a pack for inclusive language for trans and gender diverse people to make trans and gender diverse people feel more included. We have a range of videos and things as well that we put out explaining different concepts or talking about how to have a conversation about something. And then we've also got a blog. So that's the more in-depth kind of, for those who like to read. Mel and I both like to write.
Perfect.
And most recently, we've joined you in the podcast world as well.
So how can people find your podcast and what is the website?
Well, it's on Spotify and it's called Let's Talk About X, the podcast.
And the website is letstalkaboutx.org.
Yes, talkaboutx.org. It's talkaboutx.org. We didn't get the let's on there. So it's just talkaboutx.org.
Good that we're differentiating that a little bit. Okay, good. Well, let's go into a little break. And after that, we're going to go a little bit deeper into the topic about Let's Talk About X. And let's talk about, oh, wait a minute.
Al from Chatty X with Arthur from Let's Talk About Chatty.
Well, welcome back to the podcast, and Elle's still with us from Let's Talk About X. I can sense the chaos starting to come up, which is fabulous. But of course, we do have some serious topic to go into because I think what I would love to do is that if anyone who find what you do is very interesting or know someone that might know what to do, that this could be a nice little conversation that show them like kind of a little bit like a showcase of what Let's Talk About X is about. So I there's one very, very important thing that people need to talk about is consent. So let's talk about that. I'll just let you start.
All right, great. And I think something with consent, like people hear the word and I think most people straight away think of sex. But if we kind of think about it as a broader issue than that, I mean, even just in terms of sexual consent, how can we expect people to practice consent sexually when we haven't seen it modeled in an everyday scenario? So that's part of the reason that what we do is normalize everyday consent. And also it's just the fact that consent isn't just about that. It's about making those around us feel comfortable. And I think in a workplace where we have people from a range of different backgrounds and different life experiences, there can often be misunderstandings, or we can make someone feel uncomfortable without even knowing. So essentially, if I talk about consent in the workplace context, most recently, I did a sexual harassment prevention workshop with an organisation in Melbourne, and essentially part of their context was that they were a relatively small team of about 20 people, and they were very, very comfortable with each other. But what this ended up meaning was that sometimes some of them would joke around and those people would be comfortable, but others in the room wouldn't be. Or new staff members might come on board and this group dynamic of joking around, maybe, squeezing shoulders or touching or whatever was going on was fine with some people, but again, newcomers might feel a bit uncomfortable. So the workshop that I ran with them was around first, just like they all listed different things that someone might feel uncomfortable of, and it was really great. I love working in different contexts because people come up with things that I never would have thought of myself. Like a couple of the examples there were things like, our staff room is really, really close to some of the offices, so we should think about whether people might be uncomfortable if we put on a smoothie, like make a smoothie really loud because it might disturb someone. Something that I never would have thought of, but it was really relevant to them. And another one, because someone said, perhaps, sometimes we discuss medical issues as part of our job, maybe, but they weren't at an actual medical facility. So maybe that's something we should think about, whether those around us may or may not become uncomfortable with. So the workshop kind of started with that, of just brainstorming things that people may potentially be uncomfortable with, and then moved on to different ways that we can ask people or check their comfort levels in a way that makes people feel safe to say no. Because this is something about society as well. I mean, we kind of touched on it before with romantic comedies, romanticizing behaviors that aren't necessarily so consensual. And I think our society has also kind of demonized saying no. It's made it an uncomfortable thing, a difficult thing, or sometimes even viewed as a bad thing. Whereas really, I mean, today we know cognitively that it's everyone's right to say no or to express when they don't like something. But because we've grown up in this society that has normalized saying yes, or has normalized, kind of just, there is some discomfort around saying no. So I think, teaching people ways to word questions or to ask or to check in a way that makes it safer to give an honest answer. And then also, the skills to say no when you do want to, because it isn't as simple. Like there was for a while this big movement of just say no, which in theory is great, but it doesn't actually work that way. I mean, I know myself, I can often find it difficult to express when I'm not comfortable with something.
I think sometimes that there's a very strange thing that is because we're trying to break down the barrier and unlearn things that have been quite deeply attached to our psyche. That saying no is a bad thing, or it's not nice to say no or something like that. But all it is about is setting boundaries. It's setting communicating the boundaries. Because the thing is, think about it. Like, I mean, because I already learned quite a bit by just reading your website and your content online, which is fabulous.
It's good to hear.
Sometimes it's simply about communicating. And the good thing about communicating correctly means that when your boundary is not being crossed, that means you get to keep the team of talented people for a lot longer, because sometimes that the team dynamic breaks down and people don't want to work with each other anymore. It's simply
absolutely.
that they don't communicate as well, and or just don't want to communicate, something like that. And in a way, that's the business case of doing something like this, having a workshop that helps you retain talent. So something.
Absolutely. Yeah, because if your staff are comfortable, staff productivity, staff retention, easier to hire because word will spread that you're a more comfortable organization. Definitely.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I probably said it in an earlier episode. No is a perfectly good full sentence.
Exactly. No is a complete sentence on its own.
Exactly. So is I hope you got hit by a car, but I think no is a better option than the other one.
It's probably a kinder one.
I think so, right?
Probably more acceptable within the workplace, at least.
Yeah, I think so, right? I mean, you reckon?
I would definitely say so, especially on the record. Definitely.
Oh my God. Actually, you know what? I mean, feel free. Actually, I'm gonna propose. Please use it in one of your workshops. It's like compared to some of the things that some other people are capable of saying out of their head. It's like
Yep.
saying no is a much better full sentence than I hope you got hit by a car.
Could say a lot worse things. That's true.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh, I mean, okay. Now I know why I'm still single. Anyway, but I mean, and I really love that you touch on the topic that is consent is important, and also um, letting people know that it's not only sexual consent. It's very important because I think one of the interesting thing about like I'm I guess I wouldn't want to say that the entire LGBT plus community, but more like a gay community that
Mm-hmm.
many male identifying individual that was raised in a way that we are firstly hiding how we feel, which is a very
Yeah.
unhealthy thing to begin with, but also not properly learning to communicate. And that can be a really silly things that you can miss great connections.
Mm-hmm.
Well, or
Yeah.
identifying people that you don't want to hang out with. But you know, but understanding that boundary, understanding that space that you can say no is a perfectly good answer. So yeah, good for
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. And learning to facilitate that by teaching people how to hear a no as well, because often I think there's a discomfort in saying no. There's also a discomfort in being told no. So it's just those skills to, I think often when we hear no, some of us don't know what to do. And sometimes that you might seem upset or seem stressed or put the other person off, like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I should have, maybe it wasn't nice of me to say no. So it's it goes both ways. It's teaching ways to say no, lots of different ways to word it, to find what's comfortable for you, because everyone speaks in a different way, but also ways to respond when someone says no to you. Just, and it's often just as simple as like, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
Because
letting me
that,
know.
that,
I appreciate
yeah,
that.
thanks. Exactly. Because really, what has the person done? They've helped you to not make them feel uncomfortable. And that's a good thing. Assuming
Yeah,
we don't want to make people uncomfortable, it's a good thing. So
I
yeah.
I cannot agree more.
There's a lot in common between social enterprises and small businesses, particularly in filling a gap in the market. Elle's background in teaching, which led them to Let's Talk About Eggs, is a good example of building from what you know, locating that specific gap in the market, and getting started from there. In Let's Talk About Eggs' case, filling that space that many might have been too worried or confused to explore can be great in the long run. Not only would it be great for society in general, but once a good B2B momentum is built, this venture can become something amazing and long-lasting. When they talked about shifting operational model from schools to corporate training, offering matching hours to service school for every hours of paid work, I think it is another good thing that we can learn from. When pivoting to bring more financial stability, it's not about throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, to it, but to think about what can be a win-win-win situation where as many people along the stakeholder line can be benefits in getting involved. Smaller operations often got lost in survival mode, and so often one wrong move alienating existing customer, losing them, and the potential referrals. When it comes to business assets, many people think about stock, machine, and etc. But communication is also a key asset to consider. The third takeaway from our conversation so far is that if you are a value-driven business, and I don't mean values in dollar sign, but in terms of importance, usefulness, and purpose, be sure to include a significant portion of your business plan focused on communication. What's your focal point? What do you know about what your clients want? What do they not know and you can help with? And so on. Thursday in a fortnight, Elle and I will continue this conversation, and we will be talking about the LGBT+ space and some marketing. Stay tuned. Get Chatty podcast is produced by me, Arthur, the Chatty Curator. Thanks for your company. I hope you enjoy this podcast, learn something new, or pick up something helpful to realize your aspirations. The podcast guests are appearing in kind, so please consider supporting the podcast by supporting them. Small moments like liking or sharing on social media, or even tagging a friend about a post can really help. You can find the detail on the show notes or send the episode's dedicated page on chattycurator.com